Like Alex, I have to issue a disclaimer. Anything I say is not necessarily the opinion of the people who think they employ me. I just want to be clear about that. I want to tell just a very quick little story. Back in 1991, after Hurricane Hugo hit Charleston, and I was actually helping the SHMO, right, the Multi-Hazards Mitigation Plan, it was something that we became aware of, and in fact, one of my greatest frustrations then, and to show you we have come a long way at FEMA, is that back in 1991, the only thing that would count as mitigation was engineering. And at least we've moved past that. The other thing that happened in that time was that we became aware that this...
Could you speak into the mic?
Oh yeah, I'm sorry. We became aware that this group called Sun City was developing a new residential place down near Hilton Head, Sun City, South Carolina. And I had been supporting, I was the Sea Grant Director, I had been supporting a wind tunnel at Clemson University with a fellow named Peter Sparks, and we just hired a group at Sun City who had just broken the ground. And Sun City, for those of you who don't know it, which came out of the Southwest, was one of the early gated community concepts. And I went there with Sparks, who is this Scottish guy with a funny accent, and Reinhold, who was in green. And we talked to these people because they were very interested in the financial and the security of their residential development. And we had a conversation with them about how, securing your roof, your windows, and your doors, securing the envelope was just as important as keeping them safe against crime and keeping their stock coupons coming. And the great thing was that those folks were actually willing to take a flyer on that, and they did actually put on better quality roofs, thanks to Spencer Rogers, and they did put in better quality doors and windows. And then when I hear Leslie talk about how far Flash has come, first of all, Project Impact. Project Impact gave Flash its start, and now Flash is a national organization. And I think that is a good metaphor for us. At least it gives me hope, Leslie. You guys have done a great job. Then I look at Steve's stuff and I go, oh my God. And just earlier today I was looking at my BlackBerry at what the House Republicans were doing to the federal budgets, which was another OMG kind of moment for different kinds of reasons. So let's talk about trends for a moment. This is a year in which, in all categories of natural disasters across all continents, we are breaking all records. Now, I'm not going to talk about climate change because, of course, it's not happening. But there are things that do suggest that the trends and the cycles that we're seeing are not like anything that we've seen in geological history. But, of course, that's only as old as the Bible. So we don't have to worry about that too much either. But if we're breaking records in all categories across all continents and all types of extreme events, something weird is going on. And I do subscribe to Tom Friedman, the op-ed writer, who said a few years ago, we really screwed up when we called it global warming. We should have called it global weirding. And then most normal people would have gotten what that meant. So I'm not going to bore you with how things are going to get worse, but let me just simply say that if you couple some of the statistics about extreme events with some of the demographic statistics, well, let's just say, and we couple them with our financial outlooks, gosh, we've got a really rosy picture going here. One of the things that the demographics tells us that we're going to have to think a whole lot differently about messaging, both the content and the mode. When Barack Obama won the South Carolina primary, which actually showed that he could win the African American vote, he didn't do it in the usual way that African Americans won votes in South Carolina. He did go to the churches. But where he also went was he went to the barbershops and he went to the basketball courts. And that's what we're going to have to do. As we think about where we take this, and you're right, Sam, I look out on this room, and first of all, I only see 12 people who are under 40, if that number is even 12. This room itself is a reflection of our problem, as Sam said. Okay. So we have to make this conversation about family security, family values, family security. How do I keep my family safe? How do I do this? Now, and where do we get the monies from? So channeling Craig Fugate, yes, it is about individual and community responsibility. It is about the whole community. It is about the whole cycle. But still, where are we going to get the monies from? Just today, the House cut the Commerce, Science, and Transportation agencies by about 30% across the board. And Dennis Winger, are you in here? They just proposed to eliminate the BSE program. That's all the social sciences at NSF. So don't worry about it. You're not going to need funding in the future. Okay. Because they're not deeply moved by statistics. Okay. Where is that money going to come from? I think it comes from the pathway that Leslie's showing us. I think it comes from innovative partnerships. One of the ones that I've gotten the greatest return out of is one that Bill Hook introduced me to, the Business Civic Leadership Council of the U.S. Chamber of Commerce, which represents the small business guys, not the corporate guys, because the small business guys get their asses kicked every time, too, and SBA does not make them whole either. They've been great, and they're a great ally, and they have a huge disaster resilient initiative, and a lot of the foundations that support them now have disaster or community resilient initiatives. That's good. But let's talk about what we really need to do, because why I'm a Fed, let's also admit that not only do we not trust Feds, but the really important decisions aren't made at the federal level. All we're good for is money, and right now we have at least 30% less than we had before today. So, let's talk about where the important decisions are that affect a lot of this stuff. That's the local level. I like the chamber because, as I like to joke, I've never been in a local community in which they weren't at the table if they didn't want to be, and they weren't running the table if they didn't want to run the table. So, if we want to change how we think about our communities engaged in the whole cycle, then I think we have to have some new people at this party. Because everybody in this room already is on this train. It's the people who aren't on the train that we need to have. So the people I've been going after consistently for the last 5 years are the Chamber. I think we need to develop a continuing ed program for people who sit on planning and zoning boards. And let's talk about that with our colleagues in groups like the American Planning Association and others. One of my other favorite new groups, strategic groups of the last decade, are the people with local land trusts. Because if you ever looked at the people who sit on their boards, they're not just tree huggers, they're people with deep pockets who hug trees, who help elect politicians. And they often sit on chamber committees. And these three invisible interlocking directorates control a lot of what happens in our local communities. And that's what we really have to do, is change, help them to see a new vision, help them to understand that this is about their individual, their family, their neighborhood, community, family, and financial security. This isn't about dealing with Mother Nature or responding to a federal program, because as Sandra pointed out, you can lead a horse to the flooding water and it still won't drink, right? Thank you for the grandfather program, Sandra. I do appreciate the... So, I think there's several things we need to do. First of all, besides bringing some new people to the party, Ed, and I'm happy to talk with you about that, one of the things we really need to do for the Feds is to get a different perspective, a different definition of cost-benefit analysis out of the Office of Management and Budget. The way we currently do cost-benefit analysis deeply discounts the future. And prohibits a lot of things that we would like to do. A lot of what I would have called soft mitigation before, but a lot of things that a number of us think are sensible things are prohibited. from even being funded by feds because of the way we do cost-benefit analysis. But it seems to me that the future is much closer than it used to be. So maybe that steep discounting that we developed in the 70s we need to revisit. And maybe we do that by working through groups like Society of Scientific Societies and Organizations and groups like that, getting organizational and professional associations and societies to join us in changing cost-benefit analysis, because that's one of the things that's really FUBAR about the federal government. And for those of you who don't know, I refer to you, ex-military person, to explain what FUBAR is. So, Sandra, I've heard you say this twice now about best places to live. I'll put a proposition out on the table. I think I might know how we can go together and get maybe to work with AARP to at least figure out how we can get the old farts to move to safer places. Now, perhaps that's not the thing we should do. Maybe we should get them to move to the dangerous places and get the young people to move to the safer places. Then we'd solve two problems at once. Or maybe three, Social Security too. So, I think a number of things are against us. So let me tell you what I think is for us. I think there are two things that are for us. Number one, that old adage, everyone wants to go to heaven, nobody wants to die. So I think we need to redefine heaven on earth. And the second one, since you quoted, Steve, since you quoted George Bernard Shaw, let me quote for you, in closing, my final British philosopher, Oscar Wilde. You're not at the table, you're on the menu.